In this short video, I'm going to describe what questions people typically ask me about Band Together and why it's designed in the way it's designed. So one of the questions is this just for people over 65? And so usually what I say is that disability happens progressively. It actually starts at age 30 or 25, and it slowly ramps up. And it doesn't start at 65. It actually starts far earlier. But when people are over 65, they have the most to gain. They have lost a good chunk of function. They all are aware at that age that things are harder than they used to be. They have difficulty typically with several activities that are very common, say walking a quarter mile, walking up a flight of stairs, pushing something, lifting and carrying something. So they are aware that they are getting disabled. So they're interested in coming. A 30-year-old doesn't really have the same incentive because they typically feel quite good. So we started it out with people over 65 mainly so we could show a benefit. We do measures in this every 3 months. We do 2 physical tests. We see how many times people can stand up and sit down in 30 seconds and how many times they can curl a weight in 30 seconds. And so that way we can show that it's actually helping people. So people who are older have the most to gain, but this is a good activity for basically anybody. And it's recommended by the American Heart Association and other organizations for all adults to do at least twice a week. So we think it's good for anybody. It just so happens that the older you are, the more you have lost, and therefore the more you have to gain. Another question is, what would the peer leaders be trained to do? So when we work with churches, we give them a little advertisement to put in their church bulletin so they can recruit a few peer leaders. We will work with them. We have a training manual and a training program. We will train them to not only lead the exercises, but really lead the program. And how do you enroll new people in it? How do you do the testing? How do you make sure that it's safe? Because some people need their doctor to sign off, and that peer leader has to figure out who should do that. And we guide them through that, and we provide all of the materials to them. We provide a kit, basically a $500 kit that has all of the bands, all of the tracking information, all the training information. We provide that to the peer leaders, and then we train them how to run the whole program. We give them CPR training, because you have to be prepared for the worst case scenario and what you do in that situation. So we do a fair bit of training with them. And then over the first month, we will go, depending on how close they are, and actually observe a session to help the peer leader be successful, because they have questions. This is something often that they haven't done before, and so they will inevitably have questions about how to do that. Our goal then is to meet monthly with all the peer leaders in all the churches who have this going, and they will bring the cards, the tracking sheets, so we can look to see how people in the program are doing, whether people are showing up or not, and we can work together to solve problems, because each church is probably going to have some unique challenges about making this work, but some of them will not be unique, and other churches will have solved some similar problems. So we can all work together to make sure that each church is successful. Which actually raises the other good question is, why churches? Which a lot of people ask. And the bottom line is that churches are the only space in every city and town in America that is relatively low rent. And so this is really a program where people can do voluntary payments only. It is designed, there's not supposed to be a fee to participate. We will work to pay for the bands to be placed in the church, or the church will do collections for that, because the participants should in general be able to contribute voluntarily only, which makes it very different from a typical program. So the space costs have to be relatively low. And fortunately, churches have, wellness is really part of what they want to do. They're sort of a whole body, mind, and spirit goal for the church. So wellness is really built built into the ministries of many churches. So churches are aligned in their interests in what it is we're trying to do. And the best part is that Band Together typically happens lunchtime hours a couple days a week, and that is not when churches are full. So they have typically space available exactly at the same time that Band Together would want it, and they're willing to allow Band Together to use that for no cost. So churches are really a key piece of this. Another question is why bands? Some programs use weights, some programs use just body weight activities. And we designed it so that you could do it all in a chair. Some people can't get on the floor without really struggling to get back up. And I was told that you should never expect a person over 70 to get down on the floor, or your program will not be very successful. So we designed them to be done in a chair if you wanted to do them in a chair, although you could do all of the exercises, except the chair stands, I guess, standing if you wanted to. So bands are important also because there's really no limit to how strong you can get. The set of bands we picked actually has a handle that's very slender. So if you get, some of the exercises are easier than others. So if you use the thickest possible band for one of the exercises, you can actually then just hold a second one to make it a little bit harder. One of the exercises, the rows, there's 3 people in the class right now who have progressed beyond the thickest band, which is probably about 50 pounds of resistance, but pulling, it's a really big muscle, so you can pull a lot of weight. So they actually put another band, maybe the orange or green band, with the thickest one, and then there's really no limit to how strong you can get. So the bands are good because they don't place limits on how strong you can get. They last a long time. The whole set costs $30, and if you drop them on your foot, it doesn't hurt. If you drop them on the floor in the church, it doesn't damage anything. They're really pretty perfect for the task. And it's nice because you see visually how you're doing. You start out maybe in orange or pink. You move your way up to red, to blue, to black, to gray. You can quickly visually see that you're making progress, which is nice. Usually over the first 2 months, people progress 2 band colors just in 2 months. So by the time they do that, they really feel like they're making progress, and the bands help to make that visual, which is nice. How do we find peer leaders? That's a question they ask all the time. And so what I encourage people to do is put a little advertisement in the church bulletin, because you don't know who may be interested until you ask. And so one church in particular we're working with put an ad in their church bulletin, had, within a week they had their 3 or 4 peer leaders. So it's very effective method to find people. Obviously you can talk to people and all, but you just never know who's interested in doing something like this until you put the word out. And obviously messages from the pulpit help as well, but I would say a mass communication method works very well. Finding the participants is very easy. So we provide in the kit for all the churches, we provide language for an advertisement for the peer leaders, and we provide language for recruiting the volunteers. That turns out to be very easy. That's much simpler. People really want to do this. We did a survey in our clinic, and 55% we surveyed 480 people. 55% were interested in a free strength training program. Even more that were interested in a weight control program, which really surprised us. So people are very interested in this. You don't know till you ask. The hardest part is recruiting the peer leaders, and we use some mass communication in the church bulletin for that. Another big question is, do the peer leaders need to be fit? In many cases, they're not. They haven't done anything for 50 years either. So maybe a 70-year-old person. And I would say they don't need to at all. They will get fit, but they can get fit just along with the rest of everybody else. So I really would encourage people who really even haven't done anything. It's just about whether you want to help other people get fit too. A big part of this is supervising, managing, and encouraging others. It's not being a fit role model. You don't have to be some Olympic athlete who's 70 to stand up in front and do this. You're really helping a group of people. You're showing them the exercise, and then you're organizing the program. And in part, being a cheerleader, I'd say that's probably the biggest characteristic. More than being fit, being a cheerleader. People want to know they're doing well, so when I show up, and now I just watch, I really try hard to point out who's doing well, because people want to feel, people want to be rewarded, they want to be recognized for when they're making progress. So, although you don't have to be fit, being a cheerleader is probably a much more important characteristic. Another part is, why does Penn State care to do this at all? And I'd say a big reason is that last year, federal law was passed that all nonprofit hospitals have to do a community needs assessment and try to figure out how to meet the needs of the community if they are a nonprofit hospital. So now all the hospitals in the country are looking around trying to figure out how they can try to meet the needs of the community. And we surveyed the community, and the number one need they identified was for wellness programs. So we think Band Together is exactly what people want. And now, because of this IRS rule, churches have a real incentive for doing this. Particularly things that are inexpensive. And we designed this to be as inexpensive as it could possibly be. So we think it's a perfect fit for some of these new laws, as well as what Penn State wants to do. And so they extended their insurance policy to protect what it is we're doing. So this is the full support of Penn State. Another question that comes up is, we have gyms all over the place. Why is it we need Band Together? And so usually what I say is, there's 50 million gym memberships in America. 50 million. There's 310 million Americans. And there's only about 10 million Americans who actually get enough exercise. And a lot of them just run in their neighborhood. They actually don't go to the gym. So gyms have largely been amazingly ineffective for helping people to become fit. In part because it's not fun. And I go to the gym now. I go to the gym in part to be around other people, which is why I don't work out at home. Working out by yourself takes enormous discipline, even more than I do, even though I've worked out my whole life. So gyms do a largely poor job, on average, of making things fun. So you hear about Zumba because Zumba's fun. So we need somehow to make it fun and engaging, and gyms, on average, haven't done that. So most gyms you go to, you pay your money, and then you have to pay extra for all the things that actually make it fun. Some gyms do a really good job where they bundle all the fun things, all the classes, in with that one membership. And that's very successful, but that is not the norm. So what we've tried to do is provide, we're not competing with gyms, we provide this bare minimum amount of activity that would help people without charging them money. And we hope some of them will progress to then to go to gyms and get even faster, stronger, and all that. But gyms are not and have not been the solution today. Another question is, we have access to Strong Women programs and Silver Sneakers programs. Why do we need this? And I usually give the same answer. I mean, Strong Women is an amazing program. We learned a lot from watching and reading their studies. There's a cost to that. So on average, that's a $200 cost per year for twice-a-week programs, which we worked really hard to figure out how we can reduce that cost as much as possible. So we're committed to doing that and to making it something that's voluntary contributions only. Silver Sneakers is another amazing program. It's available probably to about 10 million Americans by now, but it's not available to all older adults. You have to have not just garden variety Medicare, you have to have a Medicare supplement, and then there has to be a gym near you that offers it. So if you have access to other programs, that's great. Several people in Band Together now participate in Strong Women. They also participate in Silver Sneakers. So I say, more is better. We're not competing. We're just trying to add one extra resource that people can take advantage of, one that's low cost. So in the next video, I'll describe how a church can get ready.